All right, everybody, we are here with TCG Cast, and we are so thankful and very excited to have a spoiler reveal for Star Wars Unlimited. We want to give a huge shout out to Fantasy Flight Games for giving us this opportunity. So I'm here with my co-pilot, Wookiee friend, Greg. How are you doing?
I got my power converters, and I'm ready for this reveal.
All right, thanks, Tashi Station, for that, and we are going on an adventure.
Aye, Captain.
So we have 2 cards to reveal, and we're going to start off with the Super Commando Squad. This is a 5-cost Blue Vigilance villain. It is a common rarity. 4 attack, 4 HP, Imperial, Mandalorian, and Trooper as the subtypes. This card is shielded, so when you play this unit, give it a shield token. And while this unit is upgraded, it gains Sentinel. So units in this arena can't attack your non-Sentinel units or your base. You have to go into the Super Commando Squad. Greg, what are your thoughts here? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Would you take it on a date?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think as far as I'm willing to go, this card is a draft or sealed environment. You may be a dissenter on that, which, we may be able to get into a little bit. A decent stat line, 5 cost 4/4. Especially with shielded, you can kind of think of that as adding, anywhere between 1 to, 5 health on a given card. It really just depends on how your opponent responds to the card entering play. But potentially shielded gives it a lot of extra health that it otherwise wouldn't have had, which I think is, it's a variable sort of stat within the game. And I think, those sort of things really do depend on the board state you enter this card into. But I kind of do like this upgrades matters sort of theme within the game. We've seen just a little taste of it in set 1, especially with the upgrade matters cards in blue that we've seen so far in Vigilance. So being able to see this is a very welcome upgrade. And even if potentially it doesn't really go all the way to the stars, pun intended, on this set, just having more and more support for this sort of archetype or deck theme, deck flavor, whatever you want to call it, is certainly going to pay dividends over time. So, when it comes to will it take on a date, or in my language, do we like the stock? Yes, sir, we like the stock. To the moon!
Yeah. I like this card a lot. I do agree. I think it'll see more play in limited environments just because of 4/4 with shielded as a 5-drop. It's very good. In competitive meta, what intrigues me about this card is the potential. So just based on pure stat lines, no, I do agree. I don't think this is up to chops, because normally you're looking for cards that are above the curve, above the efficiency line, whatever metric you're going for, and this purely doesn't do it. But the idea of having a 4/4 that comes in with a shield, so it's protected from its first incoming source of damage, means that it won't die immediately. Also, if you have enough resources, you could play this card and then upgrade it and then force your opponent to swing into it with the Sentinel keyword online. So that does ask more resources out of the card. So instead of being 5 resources, it's really more of a 6, 7, or 8 resource investment in a single burst. But you could split that up into 2 turns, where 1 turn you play it, and then you immediately upgrade it. If your opponent swings into it, the shield pops off. You then put the upgrade, and now they have to swing into a 4/4 Sentinel. So I think there might be ways to get this to really help you in the mid game, where your opponent has to stare down a shielded Sentinel character. And 4/4 is big. It's not the biggest, but it's big enough to really be annoying and put a lot of characters into threat range, if not defeat them completely. So I'm curious to see what the community comes up with. Let us know in the comments below if there's a specific combo you're thinking of that makes this extremely powerful. But I feel like this card gives players flexibility to express themselves and do some really janky things, and that's kind of what gets me excited. Is the card itself is inherently pretty decent, and then with more cards that come out. Also, that's the other thing to think about. In future sets, if we get some really nasty upgrades, this could be very, very stupid. Because if you think about Star Wars Destiny, there have been 0-cost upgrades that broke the game. We don't want that.
Cheerio, my friend.
But we could, yeah. We could see some very powerful low-cost, like 1 and 2 cost upgrades that make this very, very hard to deal with. But let's move on to our second card. And Greg, why don't you read this off? Because this is actually an interesting counter to the Super Commando squad we just revealed.
All right, imagine this. We taped off the crime scene. We're trying to search for something, right? Just looking around. We're playing a Phoenix Wright game. We're just like clicking everything we can, trying to find evidence of the crime. That's the card name. Evidence of the card name. It is an event in Vigilance, also known as Blue. It is a trick. Take control of an upgrade that costs 3 or less and attach it to an eligible unit of your choice. It is a rare from set 2 of Star Wars Unlimited. Now, I think this card's power really just depends on what you're going to be grabbing. You know, there's an interesting point that Sugi kind of brought up in pre-recording that we can actually get access to aspects that we haven't had before. And, you know, what that's going to be actually going to be ranges on what your opponent is playing. And for that reason, I think that this card could make it in as an interesting sideboard tech. If you have it in the main deck, I think it becomes a little bit tricky because it becomes a question of, all right, can I use this to take control of a upgrade? But then the question becomes, oh, does the opponent even have upgrades in their deck to begin with, right? Thankfully, you know, Star Wars does have a built-in resource system. If you really don't want a card, you can, you know, draw 2 and resource one of them at the start of the refresh step, which I think is a, you know, a very nice added touch. But then it becomes a question of, if you have a card in your hand that's dead 100% of the time, the fact that you have to resource it means that you're giving up on other cards in your hand that probably mean that you probably don't want to be playing anyway. So it's like an opportunity cost thing. It's like, yeah, if you play a completely dead card, there's probably other cards in your hand that aren't completely dead but are still kind of dead in the matchup that you want to be resourcing in this game. Sorry, you know, the multiple card game tongue is giving me a Freudian slip here. But yeah, I think that's what I have to say about this card. You know, Evidence of the Crime. You know, potentially interesting sideboard tech, and is something that I'm sure you guys in the comments below have already thought of many upgrades within the game. And I'm not mentioning them here for a very specific reason, because I want you guys to kind of brainstorm in the comments, talk to each other, you know, build some camaraderie down there to see what you think the nuttiest combo that you could potentially take from your opponent would be with this card. And we'd love to see your responses.
Yeah, the 2 things I want to bring up are, first of all, this is not heroic or villainy, so you can put this in any blue deck. The other thing is, there were a lot of people, including myself, trying to figure a way out to use Jabba the Hutt from set 1. And his ability was, each trick event you play costs 1 less, so this only costs you 2 if Jabba is online. Also, when you play Jabba, you get to search the top 8 cards of your deck for a trick event, reveal it, and draw it. So my thought is, with set 2 being so focused on a lot of upgrades, a lot of tools to boost your character and give them new stats, new abilities, or even bounties, you can use Evidence of the Crime by itself without Jabba to turn off special abilities on creatures that say, you know, when you attach a thing to it, get a special ability. So Super Commando Squad, if you remove the upgrade, it no longer has Sentinel. The other thing is, if you do have Jabba the Hutt, you pay 1 less, and you can search for it. So if your opponent is running a bunch of, you know, lightsabers or upgrades or guns or whatever tools that their deck wants to use, Evidence of the Crime can remove their cards, give it to you, so now you've got stronger tempo and they don't have anything. Another thing is, you can retarget bounties, and that's something that's very interesting with set 2, is there's a lot of cards that you attach to a unit, and if they're defeated, the opponent gets a special bounty bonus. Well, with Evidence of the Crime, you could just take control of an upgrade that has a bounty and attach it wherever you want. So being able to attach it to an eligible unit of your choice on your side of the board makes for very interesting plays that can disrupt your opponent's desires, where maybe they put a bounty on a unit that's heavily damaged and they're hoping to, you know, knock it out. Well, you can just move it away, or you can take an upgrade that the opponent has played on their characters to bolster them, and now you have it on your side of the board. So it's a very interesting card that allows you a little bit of flexibility if there are upgrades being played.
Yeah, and I think, you know, kind of a side tangent here, man, what an absolute knock out of the park bounties are. You know, I love when these games introduce like a sort of sub game to, you know, the overall game. You know, when you see it as a whole. You know, of course, we've seen this sort of idea in other card games. most of the time digital, actually. But to see it in this sort of constructed card game, paper card game, is really awesome. I just love when there's several little mini objectives that you have to overcome while also, chipping away at the opponent's base. One of my favorite games is Mario Galaxy, and actually the levels in that game are very much similar to that, like, taking over a lot of mini objectives to talk about the bigger picture. So, I love seeing a very thematic choice for bounties as upgrades in Star Wars Unlimited. But yeah, that's the tangent, that's the aside. Those are the cards. Sugi brought up a lot of great points, and again, thanks so much to Fantasy Flight for giving us the opportunity to reveal said cards.
Yeah, so definitely check out our newest episode where we're going to be talking about Lorcana, and then we're also going to have Xander on the show in a future episode, so check those things out. We'll have links in the show notes below. But let us know in the comments, what do you think about these cards? Where do you think they're going to slot into meta competitive decks, or even your standard or sealed or limited decks? And we'll definitely have some more content coming out from TCG Cast. So I'm Sugi, this is Greg, thanks for joining us, and may the Force be with you.